Hello, everyone. Welcome. Another exciting adventure in psychology tonight. I hope you like the new camera. It's a little bit better and a little closer, so it's like, I hope it's not too scary, okay? Tonight, we will be talking about abnormal psych, neuroses. And we'll probably end up spending a couple nights on this because it's a big topic and a lot of stuff to cover. So buckle in. Again, try not to diagnose yourselves, but if you see something in here that speaks to you, you might want to talk to a professional just to be sure. And that's all the warning I'll give for right now on that stuff, okay? Okay. One of the things I want to say first off is that we talked about problems of living is what I called it last week. Neuroses are problems of living plus. Okay? They are not always... Well, some people might diagnose them as mental illness, but usually they're more likely diagnosed as a mental issue or a mental problem, and we try not to say that a person is ill unless it really affects their lives. Also, whereas last time a problem in living could be something that is very specific and just something minor, perhaps. A neurosis is something that's much more pervasive in the personality and that gives a person a lot more problems in living, maybe not in just one area, but more than one area. One of the big differences between neurosis and psychosis, however, is that, first of all, people with neurosis don't have delusions as such. They don't have the grand delusions that someone with a psychosis might have. So they don't think they're Napoleon or anything like that. They also, most of the time, don't have hallucinations in the way we see hallucinations, like, I see people, I hear voices, those kind of hallucinations. If that occurs in a person with a neurosis, it's much more specific to an area in their lives. It's not going to affect their entire personality and such. And a person with a neurosis can live in society and be just fine. A lot of people will not even know that they have a problem. They're easily hidden for the most part. Occasionally, someone gets to know you pretty well, and they go, "You know what?" And that's when you know they know. So, and of course, your family will probably notice most of these issues. Neurosis is a older term. It may not be used quite as much, but it covers so much territory, and that's the term I use, so I kind of use it still. There are several different areas that are involved with neuroses. One is anxiety and fear, okay? And that's a lot of what we're going to cover tonight is the fear-related neuroses. There are also dissociative disorders that occur, mood disorders that occur, and what some people call somatoform issues or somatoform disorders. We'll talk more about that at a later time here. You might have a mixture, okay? Also, in this area of neuroses, I would say the paraphilias. And a paraphilia is some sort of sexual difference Some would say sexual deviation. It depends on the severity, okay? It really depends on the severity of the problem, whether I'd call it a deviation or not. But a lot of times people are seen as deviant once these are known. So I guess we'll just begin. And if you have some questions, feel free to type them in. We will also, if we have any questions that need to be saved for next time, Donna will be taking note of those too. Thanks. And thank you, Donna. Okay. Anxiety disorders. These are, there's almost as many anxiety disorders as there are people who have anxiety disorders. Okay? Probably the worst ones and the hardest ones to treat are what they call free-floating anxiety, or generalized anxiety. You'll hear generalized anxiety disorder bandied about. I call it free-floating because it is totally not focused on one instance. Okay? If you talk to a person who is suffering from one of these sorts of disorders, they will tell you they're nervous. They might be shaking. They might look panicked. They might avoid situations. And if you say, what's wrong? I don't know. I don't know what's wrong. It's just everything. Everything makes me nervous. Please don't make me do whatever it is. I'm just nervous. And that's why it's so hard to treat. Because, if you don't have a cause, something that says, hey, this makes me nervous, it's really hard to get at treating that. We'll talk about treatment more later, but usually these folks will get a medication of some sort to, help them calm down enough to be able to work, usually is the main issue, or to go out in public with people. Adjustment disorders are the next issue that a person might have. This is when something happens and you have a problem adjusting to it. Also in here are probably those who have problems adjusting to a sexual issue. Okay? They would probably come into this category. And you're just anxious about how you're going to adjust to that particular problem. And these are usually well treated in therapy. Okay? Another of these fear and anxiety areas are panic disorders. And you'll hear of people having a panic attack. This is quite prevalent, and probably most people have some situation that will cause a panic attack within them. Hopefully you never find out what that is. But a lot of people do find out what that is. And it will almost seem like a heart attack. I had to take a friend one time to the ER because he thought he was having a heart attack. And they said the symptoms were there, but this was just a panic attack. I mean, he had the tightness in the chest and the breathing problems and all these sorts of things. And it was a panic attack. We do not know to this day what caused that particular panic attack. But he has had a couple since then. I need to talk to him again and find out if he ever found out anything about that. Another anxiety disorder is phobic reactions. And I have a list somewhere of phobias. Here we go. Here are 4 major specific categories. These are categories within which phobias might be in. You might have astrophobia, which is, kind of lightning and storms. Hydrophobia, fear of water. That's a fairly rare one. Dendrophobia, I guess, is a fear of trees. I don't know too many people with that. Animal phobias, I won't go into all of them, but animal phobias are very common with people. Sometimes in therapy, we'll look and see if we can find a situation that caused that particular one. Okay? Oh my gosh. Trilana has just pointed out that there's a pop-up book of phobias. And yes, I agree. That would be evil. Because your phobia pops up and you're like, okay, thank you. Thank you for scaring me and putting me into anxiety. Another one is medical treatment and mutilation therapy sort of things. These are more difficult to treat because if you ask the person to come into therapy and it's in a hospital setting, you're going to freak them out. So they're going to have to go to a therapist that's away from a hospital. Okay, so each of these is going to have some issues during the therapy even. And then situational phobias like claustrophobia, flying, glossophobia. I don't know that I've ever heard of that one before, but I think it is supposed to be speaking with people or speaking in front of people, maybe public speaking. That is a fear that a lot of people have. And they don't find out maybe until they have to stand up in front of a group and speak. And it can be scary to people. Okay. Yes. Thesis, thanks for sharing that. He was bit by a dog as a child and has been afraid of dogs, which is surprising since you've owned several dogs since then. But strange dogs, okay? Dogs you don't know are probably more of a trigger than dogs that you own. Dogs that you know and you can predict what they're going to do. Unpredictable animals, always scary. I don't particularly like to get too close to squirrels because you never know what they might do. Okay? So, yeah. Some people have different fears that make things more difficult for them on a specific situation, like gephyrophobia. And that is a fear of bridges. I never would have come up with that word. But that is just one of the very specific fears that a person could have. Another one might be agoraphobia or agoraphobia. You hear it pronounced both ways. But this is a fear of going outdoors. And this can be very debilitating to the person. And it can be very unhelpful in a therapy situation unless you can get someone to come to the person's home the first couple times to try the therapy. Yes, exactly, Thesis. A strange dog that you cannot predict comes up. Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's interesting, Dan. Okay. Yeah, I know a couple people who have fear of bridges, and especially those big, long bridges. Those are horrible. We won't talk about them because I know it's going to set somebody off. Okay. Another of the anxiety disorders that we're going to talk about, probably in detail, and we'll probably run into tomorrow or next week on it too, is obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. Yeah, you probably know someone with OCD. It can be debilitating for people at times. The categories that come with that, something with a contamination or cleaning compulsions, People who hoard things. I might run out of that. Oh my God, I got to get more. Symmetry obsessions with ordering compulsion is more like, you got to organize everything. Okay, those things are not in order. It's bothering me. People can also have obsessions with. The compulsions usually are done to ease the obsession, okay? Because the obsessions can sometimes just bother you so much, but nobody else knows about them because they don't show themselves. And then harm obsessions with checking. These, a lot of people have obsessions with accidentally harming other people. They're not going to purposely harm other people. They're afraid they'll accidentally hurt someone. And they have checking compulsions. Okay, I'm going to confess. This is my area right here, folks. Right here. I have overcome quite a bit of this. But yes, I think part of it, growing up with a mother as a nurse, telling us all about germs, didn't help me very much as far as, hand washing. We used to wash my hands until they were raw and the skin was broken. Hoarding, not so bad. I'm not so bad on that. Ordering things, putting things in order, I can sometimes be pretty bad about that. Obsessive compulsive disorder will make you very somewhat perfectionistic. And one of the reasons why I delayed doing this show for so long, I said I was going to do it like a year or two ago, was because I wanted it to be perfect. I've gotten over that now, thank you. But it's taken work. And it was funny during the plague times of 2020. We were told to, wash your hands 20 times a day or maybe more. And I was like, only 20? Because I'm still a bad hand washer, but they look a lot better. I'm not washing them till they're raw. It used to be very bad. The obsessions without visible compulsions, I still do this. It's counting. Even when I'm making coffee in the morning and I start the water, as I'm pouring the water into the pot to get it ready, I will count how many seconds it takes me to pour the water in the pot. I watch the microwave. I'm counting down with the microwave. Yeah. But it's not as bad as it was. So, I'm getting better. And it doesn't really affect my life that much. And it doesn't affect the lives of others. When I make the coffee, Donna and I get the same amount of coffee all the time because, And so in some ways you can use these things to make things better. Ordering things makes me feel better. When things are in an orderly fashion, I feel better. You'd never know by looking at my desk right now. But that has taken me years to be able to stand looking at this and going, wow, what a mess this is. And I'm okay with that. A lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-counseling. Some people actually need medication to get over it. So, yeah, Donna, when bridges sway or they move under the car or your feet, if you're crossing a walk bridge, that bothers her a lot. Foxy doesn't like stairs. Okay, that's interesting. Did you have a fall? Because that would make me wonder if you'd had a fall. We're always looking for the cause of these things. And if we can find the cause, sometimes we can figure out how to overcome. We talked about the fear of storms. A friend of mine traced hers back to her mother's fear of storms. They never really bothered her much, but her mom made such a big deal about them, and they all had to get under the table, that she began to fear those situations. And so it bred into her a fear of storms and loud noises. Interesting. Okay. I told her, yeah, we need to work on that. Okay. Post-trauma stress, that is another cause of the anxiety disorders. That's a big one now. A lot of times people were just told to man up or, whatever, you'll be fine. And we found out with post-traumatic stress disorder, that does not work. And a lot of people have had trauma sometime in their lives, and maybe it doesn't happen, whatever it was that caused it, that situation doesn't appear again until much later in life. And then they're all of a sudden like, oh, why is this causing me anxiety? I don't understand. Okay. Okay, talking about hoarders in the family, yeah. And yes, Donna, your tinnitus would bring up anxiety as well. If the metal bridge, we used to have a bridge here near our town called the Singing Bridge. That's what people called it because it would make different sounds when you drove over it. And I know that set off her tinnitus quite a bit. So. Anatidophobia is the fear that somewhere, somehow, a duck is looking at you. Is that true? Oh my gosh. Okay. I would love to know what trauma caused a fear of a duck looking at you. Yeah, Dan, that's causing yourself to have a compulsion about keeping a bathroom sink clean is a habit that you've ingrained into yourself. If you didn't do it, like let's say you went to bed and you left the sink undone, would you get up out of bed in the middle of the night to go clean that sink? If not, it's not an obsessive compulsive disorder. So you're clear on that one. Yes, thank you, Donna. You helped me through this. I'm getting better. And Trilena used to check the rat cage was closed to the point that I would have to get up from bed to check some. Okay, yes, exactly. This is the checking behavior we're talking about. I would have to check the doors to make sure they were locked at night, even though I remember locking that door, or that door has not been unlocked all day. But I would have to go check the doors and check to see the stove is off several times, because once is not enough. I always check to see if I have my keys with me. Well, that's a good idea when you're leaving the house anyway, but you don't need to check to see if you have your keys with you while you're sitting here at your desk, but some people do. So those kind of things can they can bother you quite a bit. They can upset your life. They can waste your time a lot. But most of the time they don't affect other people too much. So you're able to live a normal life with most of the time. You might get into arguments with people who put things on your desk, and it's not where you put things like that on my desk. Might cause problems. But most of the time you can get through life okay with OCD. And it sometimes can be helpful, like I say, in 2020, I had no fears. I was washing okay. Okay. Let's see. Well, yes, Dan, always check the locks before you go to bed, but if you have to get up in the middle of the night to check them again, just because you think, you know what, I don't know that was completely locked, I better get up and check it, that's OCD. Okay, so I don't think you have anything to worry about just because you check your doors before you go to bed. That's a good policy. But if you're checking them several times a day for no reason, could be an issue. Might want to have that looked at. I say facetiously because, yeah, this is me. This was my life. I also used to... My grandmother had said something about if you step on a crack, you break your grandmother's back, okay? Okay. So, yeah, I could not step... walking on little tiles was a problem for me. With a size 12 foot, I would tiptoe everywhere where there was tile because I did not want to step on any of the cracks. That was an obsession, and that was the not causing harm to others obsession. So, yeah, fun stuff, people. So, I spent some time talking about that because it was a personal issue. I can speak to it and tell you about those kind of things. Oh, okay. Dan is saying, no, it's more that Lynn might leave them unlocked by accident. But yeah, that's fine. That's not an obsessive compulsive disorder. No. If you ever watched the show Monk, it was on the USA Network, where he always had to touch things, and he would touch every parking meter along the street. I would do that sometimes too, but then again, I'd get my hand dirty and I had to go wash it. Yeah. I got where I could touch things with my elbow instead because, it's covered most of the time. So, yeah, I could touch things with my elbow. And if you miss one, you got to go back and touch it because horrible things will happen if you don't touch them all. And that is obsessive compulsive in a nutshell. The anxiety of what might happen if you don't do the ritual. And the ritual makes you feel better. It's like, okay, I've touched them all. I've not stepped on any cracks. I'm good. Okay. And if you do step on a crack, you got to go do something else. And there'll be a ritual for that. So, yeah. These kind of things really mess up the life of the person with OCD if it is that severe. And usually it can be treated with regular talk therapy. And we'll get into that more later. Yes, it's a security thing, Dan, because the security of locking that door. Yeah, so that's not an obsessive thing. Okay. The next one on my list is dissociation or dissociative disorders. That can be an anxiety disorder in a way, but I'm not sure I really agree that it should be in this category. Dissociation is when a person might have total amnesia and forget everything about their lives because of a trauma. It's usually a physical trauma, but it could be a psychological trauma as well. A lesser thing than a total amnesia is a fugue, where a person will, it's like a short-term amnesia, and the person usually in fugue will have a running away pattern along with it. A person with amnesia may stay in the same city where they've lived their whole lives, but they just don't remember any of it. Whereas the person with fugue usually takes off or somewhere. You can't see my gestures anymore with this camera. They just take off for somewhere. So these are usually related to some sort of trauma, and they usually pass within a couple of months, and the person will come back and they'll say, oh, yes, I remember who I am now. Okay. Everything's going to be fine. As fine as it can be with you having some sort of trauma in your life. most of the time, folks with dissociative types of issues like this will be helped with therapy. We just have to kind of reorient them to their old life and figure out what caused the trauma and help them to overcome whatever that is that's causing the problem. Somatoform disorders, these are fun. One of them is hypochondria, where a person will, maybe they read some symptoms in a book, or they see something in a movie, and they say, I have that. I have that. Ooh, that explains a lot. I think I have that. I need to go see a doctor. And they can pretty much talk themselves into being sick. Some people will even, sadly, almost poison themselves. Well, they will poison their system with some medication or vitamins even, which will make them sick. And then, they can say, oh, I told you I was sick. And yes, I've known people like this. I've lived with people like this who basically, took so much medication and vitamins that they made themselves ill. Not fun. Another similar issue is a conversion disorder, and that is where a person will go blind, deaf, or have paralysis in some of their limbs or, their body due to some reaction to a trauma. So sometimes you'll hear these called reactionary disorders or reactive disorder. Basically, it's like, I'm going to go over here and do this because now I can't hear anymore, or I can't walk anymore. And so they'll seek medical treatment for that. But the doctors cannot find anything wrong, so they send them over to the psychiatric unit. And most of the time, this can be helped with therapy, both hypochondria and conversions. The last thing you want to do is give them medications, because that feeds into the whole I'm sick issue, okay? I mean, you can make a person with this worse by giving them medications, because it just kind of says, yeah, you're sick. Oh, good. I mean, it's kind of weird when you talk to a person with something like this, because they'll say, yeah, I can't walk. And they'll almost smile or smirk. And it's not like they're faking, because they can't walk. They've talked themselves into not being able to do this. So there's kind of a giveaway sometimes with this kind of thing. We look for those emotions that don't match, Donna and I knew two ladies who were such hypochondriacs that they tried to outdo each other with what was wrong with them. I've got sugar problems. Oh, wow. Well, I've got anemia. Oh, wow. Well, I've got this. I've got that. And eventually, I think they both talked themselves into those chairs, those hovercraft sort of deal, or hover rounds is what they're called. So yeah, they couldn't walk at the end of their lives. They were in wheelchairs, having people push them around, or they had the chair. And they would delight in telling each other and topping each other. They were, remember we talked about folie à deux, the madness of two? I do dearly believe that those two were the worst two people to put in the same room. And, they kind of became frenemies of sorts. They were friends because they needed to feed off of each other. But they were enemies in that they were competing to be the sickest. And of all the things to be known for in your life and to say, this is what I've accomplished, being the sickest is not a good option. And so, yes, we need some therapy on those folks to help them out. Okay, let's see. Other fun things that kind of fit in here. We're to that point. How many minutes are we in? 37? Oh, good. We can talk about some of these, and YouTube might not shut us down while we're live. Excellent. One of the lesser publicly known issues that a person could have that fit in with neuroses are paraphilias. These are the sexual disorders or sexual problems, okay? And, okay, now, epoxy, going blind from a medication is not a conversion problem, okay? That is a physical cause for that. So you're okay with that. Donna has a story coming up with amnesia and fugue. Oh, yes. Okay. Yes, I want to see that, please. Okay. But I want to talk about paraphilias now. The worst one, in my opinion, of course, is pedophilia. These folks that have a sexual desire for children, very dangerous. These folks need either hospitalization or, if they've committed something along those lines, prison. Sorry. Okay, as a counselor, I'm supposed to be sympathetic to everyone and try to work with them, but these folks, no. Usually, therapy is going to be not very effective for these folks. Medications might be prescribed. They might be prescribed by law. But the recurrence of pedophilia, if a person has acted out on their desires, they're much more likely to do it again. So, sad to say, that is one of the worst of these. Fetishism is another one. Fetishism is when you have a particular object or article of clothing or something like that that needs to be involved before the person feels some sort of sexual gratification. So, one of the stories I wrote, the Mad Gasser cheerleader, he had a thing with women's underwear. He had to have or see women's underwear to get turned on. So he definitely had a problem. Now, he acted out on it in the story in a very bad way. Most folks in here, you would never even know, that this is a problem. They keep their fetish to themselves. Now, sometimes, though, we talk about some of them. Like, some people will say, well, I kind of have a fetish for redheads. Is it a fetish? Is it not? Well, if the only time you're happy is when you're with a redhead and you only date or marry redheads, then yeah, that could be a fetish. So some of those people will talk about and bring up. You could also, I suppose, have a fetish for a particular portion of the body. We all know that one guy that came into chat one night that was into feet. And so he needed to see feet to get excited. And if he didn't see feet, he wouldn't be excited. I hope he meets someone who doesn't mind that. Okay? If you bring it up in public, that can be a problem sometimes, okay? So, Yeah. Exhibitionism is another paraphilia. Exhibition, yes, Foxy Foot Guy. Exhibitionism is when you want to show off parts of your body, and that gives you a thrill. In a controlled setting with the right people, that's okay. That's fine. But if you're going to do this in a group situation or on a public street, you will probably end up getting arrested for this. Even as permissive as our society is nowadays, exhibitionism can be a problem. Women tend to get away with it more than men. I knew a gal who loved to wear short dresses and bend over in front of people. That gave her a thrill. Not too many people complained about it because they didn't know, I guess, she was doing it on purpose. I think about the third or fourth time you begin to wonder, but, but when men are exhibitionistic, it's usually not enough for them to just take their shirt off. Sometimes it is for some guys, but some will want to flash people on the street, and that will lead to legal problems, and that's when we see them. I don't want to say the opposite, but the other problem is voyeurism, when a person gets excited by watching sexual things. Now, this could be, just voyeuristic girl watching like we used to do in the 60s, where you're just watching people along the street. Okay, it happens. You watch somebody and you fantasize and, okay, no harm done, so to speak. It could be watching pornography. Okay. But if you're peeping through people's windows, again, you'll probably get a legal referral for that. So don't do that. One that probably will also get you a legal referral is called frotteurism. I'm going to spell that out if you want to look this up later. Frotteurism. It's French. Frotteurism is when you're touching people to get a sexual thrill, but it's not touching people that want to be touched. It's just touching people in public. Okay? Some people will do it. They'll be like, okay, I'm going to just put my arm around this person, or I'm going to touch their shoulder, and it's socially acceptable, maybe, if you kind of know them, like, hey, let's have a picture together, or you meet somebody at a convention or something and you pat them on the back, okay, that's acceptable. If your hand goes anywhere else, it probably isn't acceptable. Okay? And a lot of times frotteurs will get into very crowded situations, like on a bus or on a crowded street, and they'll just swipe their hand against somebody, and they get a sexual thrill out of that. So if you've ever kind of thought, did somebody just steal my wallet or just touch my behind? You might have met a frotter. You're not in a good way either. So they're usually harmless. I'm putting the air quotes on harmless here. They're not going to go any further than that because they have a fear of actual real sexual contact. It's only touching the people on the sly that gives them the thrill. So, okay. Some more. Donna says she has a facial hair fetish. Yeah, exactly. And Thesis says he's known a few people with that. Yes. And yes, Trey, the foot guy was rather diplomatic about it. I'll give him that. Yes. And yes, Don, a lot of women flirt by touching or pretending to brush something off a guy's shoulder or lapel. I wouldn't call that frotteurism, though. Okay? I did know a gal who was a frotter, and she would touch men in interesting ways while they were in public to see if there was a reaction. It was a power thing in a way. And yeah, I was like, no. No, don't do that anymore. That's not for public. Okay. Another, and I'm going to talk about these separately, but also together. Sadism. Sadism is when you get some sort of sexual thrill out of inflicting pain on someone. And it's usually a sexually related pain. So these folks might like, whipping somebody or spanking them or something like that. But they would not like that done to them. But they would do that to someone else who was willing. And yes, hopefully willing. So the sadist gets off on those kinds of things. A masochist, on the other hand, gets off on having pain inflicted to them. You'd think these two would get along and be fine together, and sometimes they are. But sometimes you'll get a person who does both. They like inflicting and they like getting. And we call that sadomasochism. So if you've heard that term before, like, oh, that's sadomasochistic. Well, okay. Yeah. As a societal term, that's okay to use that. But in psychology, we would only use that term for someone who has both of these characteristics in one individual. Okay? So we would use it in a much more limited range. So when you see S&M, okay, B&D, bondage and discipline, some people love to be tied up. That wasn't in my list, oddly enough. But I guess it just kind of fits in here, and some people like the discipline. It's okay. A lot of the times when you're playing these roles, there's a power differential, okay? Usually, when folks do this socially and in an acceptable manner, okay, there will be an agreement. Not like 50 Shades of Grey where you have to write out a contract that's like 12 pages long. No, people just come to an agreement beforehand, okay? These are my limits. Don't go beyond that, okay? Okay, I can do that. And once those limits are agreed upon, then the people can have their fun together. And it's not hurting anybody else, so I say leave those people alone, right? Okay, yes, it's easy to be oblivious to women flirting with you for most men, as Thesis pointed out. Yeah, sometimes a woman just has to say, "Look, I like you. Okay, come on, get with the program." That is our societal gender norms, where a man can say, hey, I want to get to know you. I want to date you. You want to go out. But it was when we were younger, it was very odd for a woman to ask a man out. That was not socially, I don't want to say socially acceptable because it could be, but it wasn't a social norm. It wasn't something that happened a lot. So, women got very subtle in flirting. Not like guys. We just, hey, baby. different approaches to the same goal, I guess. But yeah. One of the paraphilias I want to talk about, and I'm not gonna be like some of the folks on YouTube. They will not talk about this, but sexual assault, okay, is what I'm going to talk about. Sexual assault is not about the sex. That it is a rage response. It is a control response. It's a hateful response. It's not, I want to have sex with that woman or man. It is I want to dominate them and control them. And it's not in a socially acceptable situation. It's sadistic and beyond, sadistic plus. And sadly, hi there, kitty. You being sadistic on my leg there? Okay. Get up here if you want. Everybody would like to see you. Sadly, statistics on rape are very dismal. At the time when I did this lecture for the first time, the study showed that at least 1 in 7 women would be raped in some way. 1 in 7. Now that is shameful. But when you look at how many people never report it, because between 60 and 80% of rapes that occur are from somebody you know. I mean, so a lot of people don't want to report it because, well, I know that guy. I know that person. I don't want to report her for rape. I mean, my gosh. Men have a problem with the embarrassment about it, if that's the case. It's hard to rape a man. Well, for a woman to rape a man, but, I suppose it could happen. Man-on-man rape does occur sometimes, and again, it's a hateful response, it's a controlling response, it's a power response. It's not just about sex. And anyway. But anyway, the part I want to talk about in the paraphilias, pardon me, we were out in the wind today, and I've got some sinus issues. The part I want to talk about is that one time I was dating a woman, and she had a rape fantasy. And she wanted me to pretend to rape her. And I'm like, I don't think I want to do that. No, you got to. That's the only way I get excited. Like, okay. I mean, if you have that, great. Fine. As long as you don't, as long as it doesn't ruin your life or your relationships, it's fine. Every once in a while, couples like to act out things. And if you want to act out a rape fantasy and you're both all willing to do it, okay. I was the world's worst rapist. Grab you by the shoulders and go, oh, did I hurt you? Oh, silly, you're supposed to be rough. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm bad. Sorry. I just can't do it. And, it was a rift between us because she wanted that kind of thing all the time, and I was not going to provide it. So, yeah. I've gotten better if it's a play acting thing. Okay? I'm not going to say anymore. But anyway, yeah. So, if a person has that kind of a fantasy, and that's the only way, in all of these, if this is the only way you can get excited, then you need therapy, okay? Now, if you have one of these and you get along fine and it doesn't affect your love life or your personal life or your legal life, then okay. But you still might need some help with these things because these are not always helpful. They're not always going to lead you to the best situations. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yes. I agree. 50 Shades, not good. Current statistics have rape down to 1 in 4. Oh, that's horrible. Shameful, people. You got to get better than that. I know that sometimes the definition changes and coercive sex is considered a sexual assault. You know, like if you don't do this, I'll fire you. That's still a rape. I'm sorry, folks. But yeah. So as the definition changes, you're going to see changes in the statistics. And we're just waking up, people. We're getting better all the time, I hope. Okay. All right. Well, wow. We got through most of our neuroses tonight. Whew. If it was only that easy to get over some of them. If I come up with any more ideas about some of these, we will talk about them more next week. If you have any questions about something I didn't mention or I glossed over real quick, because, this is the intro course. We're just to get you excited to study more psychology. But if you have questions, please write them down and bring them next time, and we'll talk about them. Okay? So I want to thank you all for coming tonight. And just in case I said something that would upset someone, okay? Help is available, okay? Text or dial 988 if you're having a crisis, okay? I don't want to set anybody off and cause any crisis for anyone, okay? All right. Well, thank you very much for coming by, and I hope everybody has a nice week, and we'll see y'all next week. Bye.